Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Trailhead Ranger and Jay. And in this video, we will be discussing about the best practices we should follow while working with the SOQL. So, what exactly is SOQL? So, if you are aware or if you have worked with Salesforce, SOQL is Salesforce Object Query Language. So, it is a language which we use to query the objects or any related field which we want or to work upon in our related logic. So it is very similar to SQL if you have worked on it, and if you have not, it no worries, SOQL is not so much complicated. We will be covering some of the example in this video as well. And if you want me to cover SOQL in more detail, I'll be making more videos on that as well. So we will be talking about the best practices we should follow while working with SOQL. So let's start. So, first of all, we should only query the fields which we need, and we should always use limit to avoid hitting the governor limits. So, whenever we are writing the query, if we are writing more fields which we don't need and we are fetching those fields as well, so it does nothing but it takes more time, or it hit like a CPU limit will be problematic, or the heap size limit. So we should be keeping in mind that whatever the fields is needed, we should be querying those field only. And why we should use limit when we are not filtering our query, it is a simple query, that is select name from account. So it will fetch all the accounts present in our org, and that could be in thousands or even more than 10,000. So what we should do, we should always put the limit to filter it out, that limit 100, that it will only fetch the 100 records then. So it will enable us to not hit the governor limits. So then next we have filter queries using indexed field to enhance performance. We should always use the indexed field to enhance the performance, or we should filter our queries using the indexed field. So indexed field is nothing but such as the ID, or any of the field which are not formula fields or use lookup fields. Those fields are not index field, but the id field or similar to those fields, we are having indexed fields. We should use those fields to query our to filter our queries, which will allow us to enhance the performance. Then third point is, we should fetch related records efficiently in a single query rather than multiple queries. Okay, so suppose if we are having a requirement that fetch all the accounts and its related contact. So we should not run two queries for each of these. First of all, by fetching all the accounts, then storing its ID, and then using those IDs to fetch the related contacts. But what we should do, we should use the related record query, that is select id, then its internal query, that select id from contacts and then from account. So it will fetch us the related contacts from each account. So we are fetching related records in a single query rather than the multiple queries. Then the fourth point is, we should incorporate the with security enforced clause to automatically enforce field level security and object CRUD permissions. So whenever there is a requirement that we want our fields which we are fetching in the query, or our query which is running in a method to enforce the field level security, we should have with security enforced keyword in our query. Also it will allow us to use the object CRUD permission as well. So CRUD is nothing but create, read, update and delete permissions. So we should use with security enforced keyword to enforce the field level security. Then we are having next point as group records by meaningful criteria to avoid overly complex and slow queries. So if we are having huge query, so we should group our records, or we should group our queries such as group by name or group by id or group by any other field which is present in the query. so that we can avoid the overly complex and we can avoid the slow queries as well. Now next is, we should use limit and offset for small data sets or cursor based pagination for larger ones. So if we are having a requirement for the larger data set, again as I mentioned earlier as well, so then we should utilize limit keyword or the offset, so that we can utilize these queries or the data fetched in these queries in the pagination and or for the larger data. Then we have next point as avoid negative operations and wildcards. Operations like not equals to, not in, excludes, or the leading wildcards in like or null checks can force full table scans and hurt the performance. So negative operators such as they mentioned that not equals to, or we have keywords in the SOQL not in or excludes. Obviously whenever there is the requirement or we are fetching only selective records, then you should use that not in or excludes, but we shall avoid or always using these negative operators. And we are having such some wildcards like if we are searching for a similar name, then we use the like keyword or the null checks, so it forces us to scan the full table and it takes time and hurts the performance of our SOQL queries. Then the next point we are having, we should avoid using SOQL queries inside the loops. This we have covered in the Apex best practices as well. We should never use the SOQL queries inside the loops because there is a chance that it will hit the governor limits. We shall always retrieve all the necessary data with a single query before going into the loop, and then use the retrieved data in an efficient manner in the inside of loops only. The next we are having simplify and clarify date-based queries with Salesforce's built-in date literals. Okay, so whenever there is a query related to date literals or date-based queries such as fetch the data which has been created today or in the last 45 days, last 30 days, or such things, so we can simplify our queries using the Salesforce's built-in date literals. So there are some built-in date literals such as last and days, and then you can mention the days such as colon 45. So that's how you can use those date literals and simplify your queries. Then we have consider SOSL for full text searches. So as they have mentioned that we should avoid wildcards such as like. So whenever there are such requirement that we need to search for full text searches, we shall consider using SOSL. This is nothing but the Salesforce object search language instead of the query language. Or when querying, when we are querying for the multiple fields or object, SOSL may be more efficient than SOQL. As SOQL go for only one object, but if we are searching for text over the multiple objects at a time, we shall consider SOSL. So now we'll go through the some of the examples. So if we want to filter our queries using the index fields to enhance performance, how we shall do it. So there is an example that is select ID name from account where created date is last and days 30. So this is the date literal I have talked about. This is the Salesforce inbuilt date literal. If you will mention here 45 or 7 or any other date, what it means is if the account has been created within the last 30 days, then fetch those records ID and name. And what it means filter queries using index fields. So as I mentioned that index fields are those fields which are not mostly formula fields or any relationship fields. So created date is also one of the index fields, so you can use those fields to filter your queries. Then we should use relationship queries to retrieve related data in a single query. So I have given you example that instead of going for the multiple queries for the related objects, we should always prioritizing writing it in a single query. So that's how you can do it. As contact is having a lookup relationship with account, so we can write it as select ID, then select ID from contacts, limit 100. Again we are using limit because to not hit the governor limits. Then from account, Instead of contact, we are using contacts because contacts is the relationship name of that object on the account. Now next, explicitly enforce users permission including sharing rules and field level security. So we talked about that if we want to enforce the sharing rule, object CRUD permissions, or the field level access, then we can utilize the with security enforced keyword. But Salesforce has given this in the latest releases that you can utilize with user mode. It is more efficient. It will use the sharing rules as well and including the user's permission, so you can utilize this instead of the with security enforced. Now next we are having use aggregation wisely to group by meaningful criteria. Improper use can complicate queries and hurt performance. So we talked about that we should utilize group by keyword, but group by generally used in the aggregation query. Aggregation query where we want to count the number of records, average them out, or get the maximum amount of something. So those aggregate keyword you can understand, aggregate such as count, sum, minimum, maximum, average, these kind of operation whenever we want to achieve in some manner, we use the aggregate query. And aggregate query implies that we should always group it by some field, so we should be very mindful about that what field we are grouping it by in the query, so that it will fetch us the correct result. If we don't use the correct field, it will complicate the query and our performance will be ruined. Now next is implement pagination using limit and offset. So we can have the query like select id name from account, order by created date. Order by created date means it will be it will be a sorted list in either a ascending or descending order. So by default it will be in a descending order, and you can write ASC or DESC to specify that in what order you want it to be sorted. Then limit is 30, that means we want only the 30 records to be there. And offset is 0, that is the pagination will start from 0. So that's how you can implement the pagination using the SOQL. Now next is leading wildcards prevent the use of indexes, result in full scans, avoid leading wildcards, use trailing wildcards when necessary. So wildcards, we talked about that there are wildcards such as like. Here you can see in the query that we are using where name like tech. So what it means, if we will use this, so this implements that anything which is starting from tech will be fetched or should be fetched. So if we will do this, then what will happen, it will search for our all the records in present in the list, and then will fetch all the records which is having names starting from tech, such as tech force, technician, technology, or anything they will, it will be fetched. But if we are having our name like trailing wildcard, it is wildcard is this percentage sign, it is ending in this, means name anything can be start from any word, but it should end in this keyword, that is the tech. So it will limit our research and it will not be doing the full scans. So that's how we can use it. So now next is lock the returned records until the transaction completes. So there is a suppose there is a requirement in your logic that if you are performing some operation, some DML operation, maybe it insert, update, or anything. So at that point of time you want those records to be logged, that is no other operation at that point of time will be performed on those records to avoid the confusion or maybe overriding of your changes. So what you can do, you can use this for update keyword to log these record. So whenever so in this query, the accounts which we are fetching having the status of pending will be logged whenever we are working on this query, otherwise they are open to any change from anywhere. Then next we are having use the limit clause to restrict the number of records returned. So this we have talked about. We can limit, we can use the limit keyword, that is 100, so that it will restrict the number of records being fetched. So that's all. So here we have covered some of the examples, all of the best practices we should prefer, we should use while working with SOQL in Salesforce. So if you like it, please like the video, and have any question, you can comment me on the video, and you can reach me out on any of the social media. I have provided the links on the description box. And yeah, subscribe the channel. Thank you, stay tuned.